Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on, what day is it today? Sunday, isn't it? You always lose track of time during this Christmas holidays, but the Sunday morning after Arsenal finally, hallelujah, have won a Premier League game. I'm sure you all loved that last night, Arsenal beating Chelsea 3-1 at the Emirates. Really good performance from Arsenal. Really surprising performance from Arsenal. I don't think anyone really expected that going into that game, given what we've seen in recent weeks, in recent months, in fact. But they played really, really well. Arteta got everything spot on. The team was right. The players performed. Chelsea were poor. And Arsenal deservedly got the 3 points, which hopefully, fingers crossed, will now be the sort of stepping stone, the thing that kickstarts what's been a pretty horrible season for now. And you can go into 2021 and be in better mood and better shape with more optimism. And there were certainly signs in that performance last night of what you kind of want to see from Arsenal going forward now, because there was a lot to like about it, and it hasn't been the case for an awful long time watching Arsenal. So I think we all enjoyed ourselves. It was a very nice late Christmas present for us all, and you could certainly see by the celebrations and the full-time whistle by Mikel Arteta's reaction. By the way he was talking to us and the TV cameras, just what that meant to him, to the players and to the fans, because I've seen all your messages on social media and the way you've been reacting for it. It's been a difficult couple of months to be an Arsenal fan, and it was just nice. Look, it's just one win at the end of the day. It's just 3 points. Arsenal still 14th in the Premier League. They're still only 6 points above the relegation zone. But it was just nice to have that winning feeling, wasn't it, last night? And to see the signs of something, perhaps, and to enjoy watching Arsenal. I think that's the main thing. Just enjoy it. It's not been much fun, has it? Let's face it, it's been pretty turgid watching Arsenal. It's been difficult to enjoy it, and that's what you want as a football fan. You want to enjoy it, and there was certainly a lot to enjoy about that performance and the way some of those players went about performing yesterday at the Emirates. So I just wanted to talk about that. Obviously, I gave the very brief sort of recap in my player ratings video last night from the game, but I just wanted to go over that a little bit more today, look at some of the talking points, look at what Mikel Arteta had to say in the press conference after, and look a little bit ahead to that Brighton game in a couple of days' time at the Amex. So, I mean, on the win, as I just said, it meant an awful lot to a lot of people. Mikel Arteta admitted afterwards it was a really important win for us. I've mentioned before some of the performance haven't been good enough to win football matches, and that is obviously difficult to handle over time. We needed the points, that's for sure, and today we did it against one of the best teams in the league in a really convincing way. And he says there the boys are delighted, and I'm really happy for them. And you could see the boys were delighted at full time. You saw the celebrations, you saw what it meant, the pressure just lifting off those shoulders. And hopefully that can really give them a sense of optimism going into the games against Brighton and West Brom to come. Because if you win those two games, you get 6 points from those two matches, and suddenly the league table, because it's so compact at the moment, starts to look an awful lot better. And you can really sort of move into 2021 and looking up rather than down, and that's what you certainly want to be when you're playing for Arsenal. I thought it was a real blueprint yesterday in that performance for how Arsenal need to play going forward. I've been calling for an awful long time for Smith Rowe to be getting his chance at the number 10 role. Ticks all the boxes for me for the type of player that Arsenal lack and have been lacking massively this season without Mesut Ozil in that number 10 role. Smith Rowe's got the creativity, he's got the pace, he's got the movement, he's really clever, he gets into good positions, he drags defenders out because he gets into those good positions, and that creates others to space for others to run into, as we saw last night. Smith Rowe wasn't, when you sort of look at it as a whole, he didn't do anything, magical or sparkling or anything like that, but it was just his movement and the way he was always there in those pockets, and he was always occupying the mind of the Chelsea defenders and dragging them out of position, and that allowed space for the likes of Martinelli on the left, Saka from the right to run into him, Lacazette to operate as well, and it was just great to see, and I thought he did really, really well last night. Smith Rowe, he got his assist for Bukayo Saka's goal for the third, and he's done himself no harm at all going forward for being a regular starter in this Premier League side, and I think he has to be now. I think you've got to be playing Smith Rowe. You haven't got to put anyone else like him in the squad. You've got to be playing him. If you could play in that 4-2-3-1 system, don't be playing Joe Willock as number 10. Don't be playing Willian as number 10. Play Emile Smith Rowe. He got his chance yesterday, his first start in the Premier League since that draw at Everton last December, so in more than a year, and he took that opportunity. He really did, and maybe Mikel was forced into that decision a little bit with what's gone on with Willian and the fact he's ill and got been displaying coronavirus symptoms, although he has tested negative so far. So maybe it was forced upon him. Would Smith Rowe have started if Willian was fit? Maybe not, but He did, and he seized this opportunity. And for me now, Smith Rowe has got to be a regular in this side. This has got to be the blueprint for how Arsenal attack going forward, because we've seen them be so lethargic, so slow one-paced, so lacking of ideas with the way they've gone forward recently. But now with that front three behind Lacazette, of Smith Rowe at 10, Martinelli on the left, Xhaka on the right, you just had verve, you had movement, you had creativity, you had youthfulness, energy. And Chelsea couldn't handle it. They absolutely couldn't handle it. They were being dragged all over the place, and it was exciting to watch as an Arsenal fan. And I think, as I said, that has to be the blueprint now going forward. You've obviously got Aubameyang to come back into the mix there. Lacazette started last night. Aubameyang was only on the bench because he's only just come back from his injury. He only had a couple of training sessions. And in the end, he wasn't needed, thankfully, because Arsenal were 3-0 up until right into the late stages when Abraham scored. So you didn't need to bring Aubameyang on, and that's good. But you'd expect Aubameyang will come back into that starting 11 pretty soon. And so if you've got Aubameyang there and then Saka, Martinelli and Smith Rowe all operating behind, suddenly you've got an awful lot of pace in that attack. You've got an awful lot of movement as well. And, that's exciting for an Arsenal fan. And then you've got Thomas Partey to come into the mix when he gets back from injury, making those runs from midfield and supporting the attack. And suddenly you think Arsenal could look like a very different animal going forward. And so that has to be the blueprint. That's what we want to see in 2021. And hopefully Mikel Arteta has seen that, has seen what the players produced when he gave them the chance yesterday. And we're going to see more of that going forward. He said when he was asked about the young attackers, I asked him, in fact, in the press conference about the difference it made and how much they improved Arsenal's attacking force. He said, I think it was a really good mixture today of senior players, experienced players, and the young talent that we have. They've been showing us in the last few weeks that they're capable of starting games. I had no doubt they would respond, and I think they were really, really good, and they certainly were. But he brings up an interesting point there as well, Mikel Arteta, about there was a mixture of senior players. And, senior players have certainly let Arsenal down a lot this season. But I thought last night some of those really sort of stepped up. I thought Granit Xhaka was excellent in central midfield. He scored his goal, but his performance was about more than that. And, there was a lot. I did a video, sort of live video on here during the warm-ups and reacting to some team news. And there was an awful lot of anger about the fact that Granit Xhaka had come straight back into the starting 11. And I could understand why, although I thought he would. But he stepped up when he was needed yesterday and delivered a really decent performance in the heart midfield, I thought. And actually, quickly, just on what Mikel Arteta had to say about Granit Xhaka, because he was asked about him afterwards. So, since I've been here, he's always shown that commitment. That's why I've been really supportive of him. He makes mistakes like we all do, but his commitment and character and how he wants to fight for this club and the team is unquestionable, and I think he showed that again. And he did. Fair play to Granit Xhaka. He's taken a lot of flack, and I've given him a lot of flack. But he came back and he stepped up on a big occasion last night, and he played a big part in that Arsenal win. So he deserves an awful lot of credit for that. Other senior players who stepped up as well. Hector Bellerin, I thought, was very, very good. Pablo Mari, fair play to him. I thought he was very, very good. Coming in his replacement for Gabriel, who obviously we know has been in close contact with someone who's got COVID and is going to miss the next 3 games. Yes, Mari gave away a penalty right at the end. He was probably a little bit tired given his lack of game time. And he put in a really good shift yesterday. Read the game well. I was in the second half. I was sitting quite down near the front of the pitch where my seat was in the press box, or it's not even a press box anymore. It's just a stand. And you could see Mari was really sort of controlling that defence. He was talking him through everything. He played a very big leadership role, and I thought it was pretty impressive from Pablo Mari. Alexander Lacazette, I thought, was great. He took his penalty well, set the tone. I thought he had a really good game as well. So he was right. It wasn't just about the younger players last night. Mikel was right. It was about the senior players as well. They all stepped in and they delivered the type of performance that helped get the points. Bernd Leno, can't forget him with that penalty save. That would have been one hell of an uncomfortable last 5 minutes had Jorginho scored that penalty, but Bernd Leno stepped up when he needed and saved it. And that's exactly what Arsenal needed. So really good performance, so many positives to take, and it's just nice to talk about an Arsenal win, not sit here moaning and being negative, and actually being positive and looking at the positives that we can take forward from that victory. So no Gabriel last night. I spoke about that just briefly. He has he's been in close contact with someone who's tested positive. He so far hasn't tested positive, but he has to isolate because of the COVID protocols that Arsenal have got to follow, and that means he's going to miss the next 2 games as well as last night. So he's going to miss what Brighton and West Brom Arsenal have announced. I asked Mikel about him after the game, and he said, well, we have to follow the guidelines and protocols with COVID. The doctor is on top of that. For how long, it is still not 100%, but he was in contact with somebody who's tested positive, so he needs to stay away for the games. I asked him, was it linked to Manchester City? Because Arsenal obviously played Man City midweek. Gabriel Jesus has since tested positive for coronavirus. Mari was marking Jesus, so was it linked to that? And he said no, it wasn't another player in the Premier League. He was with someone in his bubble. Now, we all know there are pictures doing around, have been, of Gabriel had his birthday party last week, and one of them, maybe I think it was on his Instagram story, didn't look so socially distant, so maybe he's got himself into a little bit of problems with that. We don't know, but he's been in contact with someone who's tested positive, and now he's going to miss the next 2 games. David Luiz and Willian haven't tested positive, but they have been showing symptoms. In fact, they've tested negative so far, but because they've been showing symptoms, they are also were kept away from the games last night. Again, I asked Mikel, was this linked to Gabriel? The fact that I know those 3 are very close, they spend a lot of time together. He said no, that is for different reasons. They were having some symptoms, so we have to be really cautious when it happens. The protocols say that they have to stay away. They've tested negative, but we still have to be really careful that we don't pass it on to the players before we are 100% sure that they don't have it. So from that, you can take this sort of weight in more the next batch of test results, just a bit of a sort of double negative, just to make sure that these symptoms are just a classic flu or cold that is going around. So no Willian, no Luiz last night, potentially no Willian and no Luiz on the game against Brighton. But I think what we saw last night is you don't need those players. Well, I think we all knew that before. Maybe not so with David Luiz, because I still think David Luiz has been important for Arsenal, but certainly Willian, that he has not done anywhere near enough to be near the starting 11. And what we saw last night in his absence, with the likes of Xhaka on the right where Willian would normally play, or Smith Rowe at number 10 where Willian sometimes plays, you don't need to be throwing Willian in there. You're going to get so much more from playing the younger players. We've all been saying it for a long, long time, and hopefully now that was the game that really convinces Mikel Arteta that the Willian is a player that they don't really need to go to, certainly not at the moment, unless he really starts to return to the type of form that we've seen him show at times for Chelsea over the years. But for now, I think this absence for Willian has certainly worked to Arsenal's benefit, because it's given Mikel the opportunity to really play some of the youngsters, and they've certainly stepped up and seized their opportunity. Right, finally, as we get towards the end of the video, not so positive news about Thomas Partey. He is back in training, or he's out training on his own on the grass. So that's something from Thomas Partey. He's stepping up his rehab from that thigh injury, but he's not joined in with the group yet. So he's still training on his own with the fitness coaches and the doctors as they manage that rehab. They don't want to take any chances. They don't want to happen what happened with Chelsea when he went and played against Tottenham. Apologies if you can hear my kids in the background. By the way, they're tearing the house up downstairs. So apologies if you can hear some kids screaming in the background. But that's what's going on. So Mikel was asked about Thomas Partey. Was he close to playing against Chelsea? He said not yet. He hasn't started to train with us yet, but I think he's still a few more days away. So I think from that we can certainly count Thomas Partey out of the Brighton game. Perhaps West Brom, because he got a few days after that till January the 2nd. Perhaps West Brom is one to look at for Thomas Partey's possible return. But certainly positive signs that he's back out training on the pitch again, but just not quite yet. But I guess it does. It's an exciting prospect, thinking Thomas Partey coming back into that team, especially the team that we saw last night. And it will it'll give Arsenal an awful lot at both ends of the pitch. And so you sort of look at that, as I touched upon earlier when I talked about that blueprint, when you whack Thomas Partey into the midfield and you've got the front 4 of potentially Smith Rowe, Martinelli, Saka and Aubameyang, and you're suddenly looking like a very lively attacking force, which is something that Arsenal have not looked like for an awful long time. So just the team news ahead of that game against Brighton at the Amex. I will be at that one. Looking forward to that now. Perhaps I wouldn't have been saying that yesterday, but I certainly am now. So the team news, no Thomas Partey. That's looking almost certain now. There won't be any Thomas Partey against Brighton. Gabriel will still be out because he's isolating because of that positive test within his bubble. And it looks like Willian and Luiz are certainly still doubts, and looking unlikely that they will play. But no real fresh injuries to come from yesterday's game, and I don't think you're going to be seeing too many changes. When you look at how they performed yesterday, they've got a couple of days now where it'll just be total rest and recovery ahead of that Brighton game. It's not really going to be much training, just going through the motions, really working on a few drills, just shaking off the any knocks from last night. So I'm expecting you're going to see a very, very similar side. I can't imagine there are going to be too many changes, and Mikel Arteta will once again go with the 4-2-3-1 formation. Potentially we'll see Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang come back into the side at the expense of Alexandre Lacazette, but I wouldn't even say that's for certain, because I thought Lacazette played very, very well last night, and if Aubameyang's still not 100%, then you're not going to take any risks. So that'll be one that potentially could happen, but certainly I think you're going to see that front three behind the central striker of Smith Rowe, Martinelli and Saka continue, and hopefully that will bring a similar sort of result and a similar sort of performance to what we saw last night in the win against Chelsea. That's about it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all had a very, very good Christmas. I hope that late present last night has added to a good couple of days for you. And yeah, thanks for watching. Head over to my social media channels for all the Arsenal news and from goal.com. And I will be at the Amex, and I'll try and pop back and do another video ahead of that game, looking at the team, sort of more updated team news, predicted 11, and any other Arsenal news that happens to follow in the next couple of days or so. Thank you, everyone. Have a very good day. I'll speak to you soon.